I told her, I was like, do you guys need help? Nah, we got it. And then like 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks before the wedding, like, are you guys gonna come and help? Are you guys gonna, we have a lot of stuff. I was like, okay.
All right. So today joining us, we have Leslie and Leslie. So they happen to be best pals, best friends, and well, actually, is it Leslie Chester?
Yes.
Yes. So Leslie Chester helped Leslie Marshall now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, oh shit, did I say her name? But you're like, yeah. So Leslie Chester helped Leslie Marshall plan her intimate wedding in a scenic location, essentially. So I think we're just going to kind of roll with this and talk about some of the challenges you face, some of the triumphs you've had, and kind of your reason why behind planning this wedding as you did. So Leslie, let's call you Leslie Bride. Leslie
Bride of Leslie.
Friend. So Leslie, jump in and tell us kind of why did you even want to have a destination wedding? You actually tell us where you got married and why you wanted to do that.
So Zion is one of my favorite places, but also Justin and I spend a ton of time up there. It's just beautiful. It's one of those places where as soon as you get in the car and you head to it, everything just melts away. I don't know how to explain it. We mountain bike up at Gooseberry all the time. He proposed on top of South Rim in Gooseberry. And I almost just felt like I wanted to get married right now, right here. Like, this is perfect.
I tried
love
to talk
nature.
you into that, but
I know you did. But the hard part is you would have to be on a mountain bike to get there. And the hiking is even really hard. And we have a lot of like family, and they would have been really mad if we left them out of that. So yeah. I incorporated as much as I could into your elopement ideas as I could. But yeah, I had heard about this house years ago. A girlfriend of mine's daughter got married there. And I looked at the pictures and I was like, oh, I like this idea, and just kind of put it in my back pocket. And as much as I wanted to get, married in nature and make it easier, Vegas was it's just not where I wanted to get married. I wanted to have it be, in this magical place that we had basically started our relationship and meant a lot. And that was the number one point for me.
Side note, Leslie lives in Las Vegas. That's why she said that. She didn't want to get married in her hometown, or, like where she lives is kind of, she wanted a destination wedding because so many people, I had to make that note because so many people want to get married in Las Vegas because it is not where they live, I guess. So
that's true. I'm here all the time. So the last thing I wanted to do was actually be here. Yeah.
Right. But there are destinations closer to Vegas, like Red Rock or, Blue Diamond.
And also I'm very, and Leslie will, hold me accountable to this. I am very, like, if someone does something, I want to do the exact opposite. I'm always like looking and seeking to be original. I don't want to look like anybody. I don't want to do anything like anybody does. And so yeah, Red Rock is beautiful and all those nature places. And I have all these different memories there. But this place was one place that I'd never been. In fact, I booked the house and I haven't even seen it in real life. I do that. I bought this house like that. I saw a video and I was like, yeah, it's exactly what I want. I'm very like, yes, check, next. Right. Like, there's not a lot of deep thought that goes into it at all, which sometimes can be a challenge, but then I'm just kind of roll with it. So yeah.
Right. So you made the decision. You made the decision, then you just move on. I love that.
I mean, technically we have to like, preface the fact that I had gotten into a really bad mountain biking accident. I had a bad concussion and 4 broken ribs, and I had nothing to do. I was in a brace and on codeine. So I said, okay, I'll plan a wedding. And so I literally just started like shopping and pushing buttons, and I picked a date in May that was
always a good idea to do shopping while you're on medications.
And I'll tell you, I was like floating. That's how I felt because it was so painful. So that's how I planned this wedding.
Great. So anybody can do it. That's what she's saying. Just
A true story.
Yeah.
So you wanted to have an intimate wedding in a spot that meant something to you, and also kind of be outdoors and do all that stuff. But it sounds like maybe would have even preferred a more adventurous spot in some regards, but you have close family maybe and friends that maybe wouldn't have been able to attend. Is that kind of why you chose a house? Or
Yeah, because there are remote spots even within Zion, and even in Red Rock, like if you hike back, right, it's
Mhm.
just beautiful. But there were a lot of people that don't hike or mountain bike that I would want to have to be present. And also, I'm very people pleaser esque, and and that's why I love Leslie, because she was like, "Today is your day. This is all about you. Like, stop tending to everybody else." And she was just feeding mimosas, and I was being pampered, and I was like, this is crazy. I didn't even know how to do my own laundry when I came back. I was like, what do we do? We don't have any people to help us. Like, what happened? And so it was just like something that I thought, oh, this is a great place because there's a big outdoors area where you can play like all these different games. Um, and then there's hikes all around there. There's stuff to do at the Ponderosa. It just seemed like the perfect spot for people to have vacations and kind of make a trip of it, to entertain everybody in a sense. We'd had a family reunion that we did that in Atlanta, and I thought, oh, that worked out really great. We're not just stuck like
right.
somewhere bored. Um, yeah, everyone loved it, and a lot of people had never been, so it was nice to see the reaction of just how gorgeous it really is.
Right. So you just decided I'm going to book this place. But you actually found it because you knew of a friend's what was it? Somebody you knew got
Yeah,
married there, basically.
yeah, yeah.
Did you do any research otherwise, or was that like, well, I'm just going to make this decision?
I had done just enough to be dangerous where, it probably took me like half a day where I was just kind of looking here
Right.
and even surrounding areas. And I was like, you know what? No, like I want it to be like, and I actually wanted it originally. I thought, oh, I should just have it at my house because that's why we bought this house and the way it was laid out. And I got talked out of that real quick because they're like, people are going to trash your house. It's going to be crazy. And in hindsight, it's not. We've had tons of parties here with like plenty of people, and it's fine. We have cool neighbors. And we're like on the edge of the edge. So there's nobody to bother. But I
Uh-huh.
wanted that same feeling in a place that was just kind of quiet and beautiful and whatever. And so once I picked that, it was just easy after that. I didn't think about having to like transport all that stuff. It just didn't make, I was like, oh, it'll be fine. And then once it got closer, I was like, oh my gosh, Leslie, what am I going to do? Like, I need a U-Haul.
All
And
right, let's
without
talk about
her,
that actually.
I
Let's
just,
oh
talk
yeah.
about
I told her, I was like, do you guys need help? Nah, we got it. Justin's got a truck. He's fine. Everything's good. And then like couple weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks before the wedding, like, are you guys gonna come and help? Are you guys gonna, we have a lot of stuff. I was like, okay.
so actually another note about Zion, and correct me if I'm wrong, Leslie's, is that there's not a lot of it's fairly remote. I mean, in terms of maybe in terms of folks that can help you or service, is that accurate? Like, is there a rental company there? Is there, I mean, all of those details you kind of sourced almost like locally in Vegas in
Well,
some regards, right?
the town by Zion is like 45 minutes from the location of the wedding. So, or even an hour, depending on the
Right.
traffic and if there's a rock slide or
Right.
anything, because it's pretty remote, I would say.
I mean,
Yeah.
St. George is even the closest town as far as like Walmart-esque type
Right.
things. Everybody traveled in. So I quickly was like, oh no, this is not good. I like have to really scramble and figure out DJ, hair and makeup, you name it, right? And everyone was such a good sport. Like the chef I've known forever.
Really?
I
I
called her. Yeah, I've known.
Just a side
Yeah.
note, by the way, I photographed Leslie's wedding. So we know each other,
Oh, yeah.
and we have had a relationship for I mean, a few years now. And so I attended, so I have some input too. So just so everyone knows, that's kind of where my little input's coming in. But the chef was amazing. I was blown away by the quality, the presentation, and the intimacy of like the food selections, and also like the variety was quite impressive. So she was from Las Vegas too, or no?
Yes. Yeah. She
Oh,
owned the high tea shop inside the antique market back in the day. I don't know if you were living here or if you remember that.
I don't think
We
so,
used
no.
to go to high tea once a week, all the time. And she hand makes, I mean, everything is homemade to the tea, soups, sandwiches, her chicken salad,
Right.
scones, jams, like, and she's very like, it reminds me of like water for chocolate, where she's like very passionate about everything has to have like this meaning. And I hadn't talked to her. I mean, I talked to her off and on, but because she doesn't own her own place anymore and she wasn't working technically at the restaurant, she had taken a break and done some abroad stuff and come back. And I was like, hey, so what are you up to? How's it going? And I'm getting married. And do you want to cook for me? I love your food. It's, oh, by the way, it's in Zion. Like, what do you feel about that? She was all for it. And we talked about the menu. She's actually done one of my birthdays before. I let her just kind of do her thing. I
Okay.
told her, obviously, like I would really like some vegetarian or vegan options just so that everyone's covering my bases. I'm allergic to garlic and meat or red meat. So I was like, no red meat, but garlic is so yummy. Like, just kind of maybe make some stuff on the side for me doesn't have garlic. And she was like all about it. It was great. But the fact that, and I knew that kitchen was the bomb, so I had sent her pictures, and there are multiple refrigerators. I mean, it's like a chef dreams come true. I mean, it was just fully stocked for someone to come in. And that's the great thing about Glenn. When I finally got a hold of the owner, it was actually, he had
The owner
bought
of
it
the
from the
house. Yeah.
previous people. And his number one thing when he bought it was he wanted to have people make memories there. So he constantly is going and listening to all these other vendors that work at that space. The bartender had worked there multiple times. He was great. Charlie was awesome. He was probably one of my favorite vendors. I think that the event crew people are just kind of messy, and I wasn't a big fan of them. But I still needed like tables and chairs here and there. But Glenn has bought a ton of that stuff. So eventually he's going to have everything there so that
Mhm.
he can actually utilize it and rent it out. And then he has people that service it. So he just knew, and he was so helpful. He actually bought the bar for me as a gift for the
Wow.
wedding.
He redid the
He
whole
helped.
bridal suite area. Like he made that because what was
Yeah.
that before?
It was like a massage room. And so it was just kind of like dead space in the master or the primary. And he turned it into a full-blown bridal suite. So every time someone had an event there, he took the feedback from that and applied it. So there's a pizza oven. People have family reunions there. I've even told him, I was like, I would love to come back up here and do like, an anniversary trip in 5 years or something like that, just for fun, just to kind of revisit it and have fun and wear the
Mhm.
onesies again, have like a onesie reunion. So in the middle of the wedding, everyone's cold. Meanwhile, I'm probably so full of alcohol that I'm burning hot, and so I don't understand why everyone's cold. My friends put on onesies, and they come through the entire wedding. I have a lot of older people, and they were just like,
It was so
"Oh my god,
cold.
it
It
was
was
all
so
yeah,
cold.
it was
I
cold."
only wish we had matching onesies. That's the only thing. I don't regret it at all. I just wish they were all matching or something.
Right.
Or they all had tiaras or something.
It was literally the highlight. People were like, "Oh, you're friends in onesies. That was interesting," and
That's
that
so
everybody
funny.
talked to me about that.
That's so funny. So actually, let me backtrack just a second, because you mentioned friends and family and the property that you had your ceremony at and your reception, because you found a place that was beautiful for a ceremony and then you transitioned to another area that you had your reception in, and it was perfect for your group size 100%. But accommodations for guests, did people stay there? Did you have like, how did you navigate that? Like, did you, you know, did your chef stay there, especially because she was out of town? Like, how did all that work with vendors from outside of that area? And did you run into more cost, or how did you navigate that part? Because that can be complicating.
And get
It
expensive.
can, and there's like different houses that have like where you can have 30 people stay in a house. However, you have to pay water and electricity and things extra added on utilities when you have big events, because the utilities up there are only allotted for like say 8 people per household, right? So that they have the proper resources. So I had to pay like an event fee for that just to cover all of his bases, because he also in turn has to pay the county basically for over a number of people. Ironically, the week before that, I think that what did he say? 250 people were on property for a party. Not everybody stayed on property. So I would say like he has what, 5 rooms less? Is that right? 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think. 4 or 5 rooms, all master suites. So king size beds plus
yeah. I
own
only
bathrooms.
saw the bridal or where you guys
4,
got
5,
ready.
yeah, 5. There's 5.
Yeah.
And then there's a little room attached to the primary bedroom, because the previous owners, I guess, fostered children, and so they kept like a small bedroom close to them, but no one was allowed to stay in there because it was like attached. No one.
Yeah.
I was like, no. But the room we stayed in, because I got to stay on property because I think she like bribed me, just kidding, to come in and like stay there so I could help with everything. I would have helped with everything anyways, but so we got to stay there, and we stayed in this, it was like a bunk room almost. It originally had 2 fulls, twin over full bunk beds, and then like a queen. Well, Glenn did not want that anymore. The owner, he was like, no, I want it to be, he doesn't want it to be a place where it's just this big party house and it's, sleeping 30 to 40 people. He doesn't want that at all. He wants it to be people that are actually going to take care of. He doesn't want the house to be ran through the ringer, and he wants people like Leslie that understand that and want to take care of his house, even though he's renting it out. And we stayed in, and he had changed that. I think it was a king, and then they kept one of the twin over a full bunk beds off to the side, and it was nice. It was
That's
really
awesome. Nice. So then were all the rooms occupied?
Oh yeah. So everybody that stayed on property 1 was just like super close to me, was willing and wanting to help with all the things that are happening. And I was so glad that I did it that way. So it was my aunt and uncle, which is my dad's brother and wife. They're awesome. They're like second parents to me. Leslie, Kelly, my MC, / onesie brigade, Smithy, and then my best friend Becca from like 4th grade. They were all there.
We totally forgot though. They have like a carriage house.
Oh yeah, the chef
like
stayed
an apartment attached to the garage, and that's where the chef stayed.
Oh,
yeah, she got a helper.
That's where the chef stayed. Yeah.
So there's a whole casita on the backside with a private hot tub and everything, and upstairs, downstairs, even has a full kitchen. So her and her friends stayed there. They got to have like, a nice private area, and it actually turned out to be perfect because they got in at like midnight, and they had I sent them everything they needed to just kind of self-check in, and
that's nice.
They were good to go. Yeah. But yeah, you have to pay a toll going through the national park, and everybody had a fee for delivery, and I was like, oh heck no. So I actually asked Kelly, hey, I'm just gonna play music from my phone, like we got this, right? I obviously was gonna have you photographed because that's a thing for me. I love my pictures and all that. So I was like splurging for that. But like music and stuff, so we bought a DJ kit for like a couple $100. The DJ is gonna be over $5,000. I just thought that was crazy.
Right.
For me.
Was that because they were coming from out of town, or was that okay?
Everybody had like this crazy charge for travel and everything. It was like double basically, even the hair and makeup. So thank God. Oh yeah, it's Stephanie, my best friend, stayed. She does my hair, and I didn't want to put any of my friends to work. No offense, McKenzi, but sorry, you're kind of in the niche. You're kind of in the niche that I was doing a thing, but I didn't want to put anybody to work. But at the same time, I was like, I cannot pay this much money. I cannot justify paying this much money. And I had tried a couple different things. And so I actually let that hair and makeup go. I do my makeup pretty well, and I was fine with that. I didn't need to like super glam or be pampered in that way. But Steph did do my hair that day, and I was really glad because I got like all this quality time with everybody. Thursday we got there, we just partied it up. We got there so early, and we had been up the night before partying for Leslie's birthday. She took me to some horrible ghost museum, never go. And we had fun, stayed up till midnight, then got up at 5 and like rallied and got to the house, found the margarita machine, like just went crazy.
Yeah, Justin was going crazy making margaritas.
And none of us knew how to make frozen margaritas, so that was even funnier. Justin doesn't even drink, so I knew he was nervous when he's like, let's figure out how to make drinks. And it was fun.
Very cute.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it sounds like, and you can correct me here if it doesn't sound like this. So you really wanted to create this really unique, intimate experience almost for you and Justin and your friends and your family. And so I mean, having this location where you could have some people stay. So to answer my question, it sounds like you didn't necessarily have, you had people stay that you knew would help and participate, but wanting to. It wasn't like people that, you know, they would have probably helped anyway. They wanted to be there. It wasn't like a burden necessarily for them. So that's kind of how you chose the accommodations for guests, right? Because family dynamics in weddings, right? Or friend dynamics is probably something that I find, or when I got married found, was like, wow, I didn't think I was going to have to go through, like, this is weird. I think, oh, I'm just going to have this great ass party. And then
a lot of Leslie's
like,
friends, to interrupt real quick, a lot of Leslie's friends are in the production or can do production or has been in production. You know, my husband used to do lighting design, theater design, stuff like that for shows. He is a project manager now, so he's just on tasks kind of thing. Right. He's just like, what do you need done? We also used to work for a race company that would put on 5Ks, so we'd be up at 3 a.m. setting out cones and painting lines and all that. We know how to do
stuff
all that.
Done.
Yeah, getting stuff done. And then her friend, and then our really good friend Kelly, our other BFF, I would say, she does movie production. Like, she works on movie sets all the time in Ohio. Right. And so it was just a really good crew to just get stuff done. I mean, and then anybody that I think that couldn't stay at the house or there wasn't space for at the house, down the street, about how far is that, Leslie?
It wasn't even a mile. Ponderosa Ranch. And then also that whole entire neighborhood rents their houses out because they can make a ton of money, and they have other houses that they live at.
That's actually an amazing thing to know. If you're like, if you're thinking about doing something similar to what Leslie did and you want to have guests, you do need to consider where they'll stay, because this is a fairly, I mean, it can be a busy area, like camping and stuff. If you're doing anything last minute in this region, it's going to be hard to find accommodations.
She gave them enough notice. Right. She gave everybody enough notice, and the people that waited till the last minute did struggle to find a spot because the Ponderosa did get pretty full. And, like I said, anything in like Zion or Springdale. Is it Springdale?
Springdale, yeah.
Okay, anything like Glendale. Springdale or Virgin or wherever is still far, and then you have to wait through the traffic in the park on a Saturday to get to the wedding location. It just,
So some logistics. Let's talk about those. Some of like the struggles a little bit. I mean, weddings are all rainbows and sunshines, right? But let's talk about real life here now. So after you book this house, it sounds like you're like, yeah, this is going to be great. And then you're like, oh, shoot, I have to really start thinking about logistics and how am I going to do this? And how you overcame some of those things. So let's talk about some of the struggles.
So parking. We weren't allowed to park anywhere in that area on that main road inside the gate where these houses are, or the huge fines. And they would tow your car. Like, there's somebody literally watching, and they're all alerted when there's events and things like that. It had to be over by 10 o'clock or at least.
Let's talk about the parking. What'd you do?
Yeah. So I basically was like, I'll just wing it. And then as it got closer, I ordered golf carts to transport people. And then I made a list of all the people that were going to park at the house and like counted the spots. And mostly it was like people who were like traveling from afar or were helping. My dad was like very high maintenance, but you know,
We'll
he's
talk about
all
Did that live on camera?
I did. Yeah, he was high maintenance and he was like, oh, I want to be catered to. I'm like, all right, fine, park your car here. Who cares?
This is a real, that's common. So let's actually, we'll make a little note and talk about the family.
Oh yeah,
Family.
Leslie.
Yeah.
I've gotten more stories about like. So that was the other thing too. Everyone was like, "Oh, I know Leslie the day of the wedding," and I was like, "I know, but you guys got to keep everybody out. Like, it's got to be a surprise. I can't see everybody as they get there and like special." So that was a little interesting. After a while, like shut it down and like sent everyone away. Even though a lot of those things were really special, like don't get me wrong, it was nice and touching because they were like giving me something pre-wedding and I loved it. But I want to also like, surprise everybody with like my dress and things like that. I didn't want to take away the awe and ooh of everything. But the parking was a thing. We figured it out, which was great. I just sent mass text messages out. I actually made a wedding website, which nobody read, which was awesome.
Okay,
let's talk
about that.
I think that was the biggest complaint from her.
It's like I did all this effort.
However many months it was from start to finish on planning was no one's reading the website. Like
I've been to. First of all, you're a big eco person, McKenzi. So in some ways, so am I. Obviously, forgot about the rose petals. My bad. I picked them up. But at the same time, like I didn't want to have I hate paper, even though I love my notepads.
Right.
Like I try to limit my paper. And so I didn't want to like send out an invite and mail it and all these things. Right. Like so I made coffee mugs and I made a wedding website on it, which was, I thought, very detailed. People were asking the weirdest questions. They didn't know there was a bar. They didn't know there was food. And I was like, what do you mean? What kind of weddings have you gone to where there's no food? Like, that's weird. So it's like, you can over explain something, you can tell everybody whatever you want, but they won't read it.
Nobody reads things anymore. They want to be
not at all
information spoon fed to them.
I even texted Leslie some questions that I was like,
I did too.
I was like,
on purpose. After a while, I was like, you're killing me. Like, oh my gosh.
So that is something that, have a little sidebar that probably maybe it was fatiguing for you or not, but maybe having someone filter that, like you maybe could have said, oh, hey, you know what, actually I'm just going to use Leslie, she's going to navigate questions a week before the wedding day.
I told her to hand out my cell phone number the day of, at least the day of.
Right.
And I told her to shut her phone off the day of.
So like in other instances, wedding planner or day of coordinator sometimes would take on that responsibility. But if you're planning something, DIY, or you're planning something from far and you don't want that extra expense, then maybe having a designated point of contact, even for your guests, would be good. Because I did experience you being frustrated a little bit on your day, you're very detailed for one thing, and project manager mindset. So you're like, did this happen? I was like, oh my gosh, this poor girl, it's her wedding day and she's managing this a little bit. So anyway, a little sidebar nugget that maybe you didn't even think of was a struggle, but could be a helpful tip for somebody.
Yeah, it's more along the lines of, I just was like wowed. And I guess maybe I've been to more parties and weddings and things like that. I'd never gone to a wedding where there wasn't food or bar or whatever. And so I got the weirdest questions about that. I got the weirdest question about shoes. Like, is it gravel? Is it this? Is that? I was like, it's literally a home, like a house. So like there's flooring and like there's shelter. And I just was like, are people messing with me? Like, I felt like people were messing with me. But I also think that, we've gotten to the point now where there are times where we, instead of like researching or looking it up, and after a while, I just started sending people the wedding website.
That's what you sent me the gate, it was at the site, the screenshot of a site with the gate code.
that was what Glenn sent me
Got
when
it.
I got almost to property. And so I sent it to everybody. It was the Wi-Fi, it was the gate codes, it was all these things. Even still, Justin's boss didn't even, he was like, oh, you didn't tell me there was a gate code. And I was like, what is
I didn't
happening?
get
Like, of
that.
course we did. Because you were already with us.
Oh,
Yeah. You were right behind it. Like you were right there. So it was just funny. Little stuff like that. I would have to say the only like crazy agitation was the fact that people would say yes to coming, even though, because I was like, hey, don't even
RSVPs?
worry. Yeah, don't even worry. Like, you're not going to hurt my feelings. But, you know, obviously weddings cost money and I'm doing it by chair and by food and all these things. And people like literally, it's almost like they didn't want to disappoint me or they just didn't know how to verbalize saying, oh, sorry, I can't go. And there were people that ghosted me on the day of, and I had to reach out and be like, so are you dead? Like, what happened? And everyone always had these elaborate stories. And I was like, it's okay. Like, there's always if ER or like some kind of family trauma. I'm like, nobody's having these problems. Like, I'm sorry if they were. That was terrible. But
Yeah.
like, why wouldn't you just text and say, I just can't come? And everyone knows weddings cost money and it's always per person. So why would you ever just say, oh, it's
so
fine, I don't
interesting you
need to
say
like
that though.
RSVP?
I
Yeah.
do think that this comes up destination weddings a lot because people get excited initially and they're like, hell yes, I'm going to be there. I'm excited. And then maybe they don't plan far enough in advance, or maybe, you know, stuff does come up, or they don't think about their finances, or they don't think about the logistics. Something sort of changes a little bit. And then, yes, I think they have like this almost yes remorse or, you know, confirmation remorse or something. And then they just don't know
Yeah.
what to do. And it's a very
And
interesting thing. But people, I do think that often people forget that weddings are by person. So because I'm in the industry, I think it's important. Sorry, I'm on a little tangent here, a little soapbox, but
no,
it's
this is
important.
super important. I would have
It's
been more direct.
Yeah, I think potentially being more direct, maybe that's where some like formality, like formalness of an invitation, like they're just like, oh, sure, we'll just show up and, you know, Leslie will
Yeah.
take care of us, whatever. But I think that people often forget that actually weddings cost a lot of money per person. Like I always have to rephrase it as, would you spend $100 taking your friend out to dinner? Would you buy their $100 meal? And oftentimes you're like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe on their birthday. Or maybe, you know, like,
Yeah.
because it really adds up the cost per person, you know. So just a little note that yeah, and sometimes feelings can be hurt or there's awkwardness like you experience, and that's not what you want on your day.
Leslie's so straightforward. Like she just
Right.
is. She's just always been that way. Like she's like, if you're gonna, you know, if you can't come or if it's too much for you, just tell me. I don't care. It doesn't
Right.
bother me one way or another. I just need to know.
But
And
it's
she
other
just,
people, you
yeah.
know, it's like other folks.
Because
So
I even did that with the invitation. Like I had an invitation party so that I could save on shipping things out. And there was a lot of like shipping things to people just so that they could have it. And I was like, yeah, it was a lot. It was like $20 to ship that mug. Like
right.
versus after a while, I just started sending them like the wedding
The URL.
website.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, you know, with especially with like with the shift in the economy, shipping went through the roof. And so there was a little bit, and it was more just me being conscious of like, I don't like wasting anything. So there was the good part is like there was all this leftover food, which was great. Irony, we had to figure out how to like pack it all up. So they went to the Ponderosa restaurant and got like a ton of to-go boxes. I was like, yes, this is why I love you guys.
That was Smithy.
Boxed everything up. Yeah, Smithy. She boxed everything up and labeled it and put it whatever. We ate it for like a week, froze a bunch of it, and I'm still eating.
It's
like
so
I'm about
good.
to pull out and it was so fresh that it was great. So we didn't even have to go to the grocery store on our honeymoon. And then I froze the rest of it. So that was kind of nice. I made the best of it, but yeah, I don't like wasting anything. If you're gonna go, like just if you can't go, it's okay. Like you're never gonna disappoint me. But there were a couple people that were like, oh, I thought I told you no, or oh, well, something came up, and I'm the one who reached out like 3 different times, like, hey, is everything okay? Like, God forbid something bad happened, because people were driving in. So there was that whole thing. So that was just like a head scratcher to me. Like in this day and age, like we can't be honest with each other and just say
I
yes or
think
no. Like
RSVPs are so, I think that I'll have to talk to some other wedding planners about this too, but it does seem like this is an area that people in general kind of struggle with.
People don't even, if you actually send a paper,
They don't
form
just
out
do
for
it.
people, like people don't even fill them out and send them back. It's
Right.
sometimes, unless you put like beef or chicken, then they're like,
Yeah.
oh, I need the chicken because I don't eat beef. Or then they're
Right.
like, I'm going to send that back because I have to plan my meal.
I want to circle back on parking because this is how our conversation goes. So when you got golf carts, what did you actually do? Or tell me actually how the parking worked, because I actually got to park on property. I didn't even ask. I just was like told them like, I'm going to park here. But
yeah, no, I figured that anybody that was working the wedding or doing anything like, so we actually moved some of the cars less, right? Like, and that's the nice thing about like telling Leslie and Kelly and that I was like, figure it out. I made all the decorations. I was like, put them wherever. I at the day of the bartender shows up, I'm like, Kelly, deal with him. Like he's a bartender. He serves drinks. Like it can't be rocket science, but like get him going. Like, cause I'm getting ready and we're doing pictures and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that I didn't really care. I was very simplistic about, and what where a lot of people I know are like drawing schematics and they're like very specific, and that's why they get a lot of these people that they hire to help them. I was very like foo. I even made like the archway stuff. I was like, whatever. And we were trying to figure out like parking signs, do this, do that. And I was like, no, we just won't give the gate code to certain people. They have to park at the Ponderosa. So the day of, I just mass sent out text messages. So that's where I rented the golf carts from. Irony, they weren't charged very well. And so at the beginning, I think they made like 1 or 2 runs and they were fun. But people, our friends are all mountain bikers. And so he had a van. And so and I'm sure he was bored too. Like, let's be honest. So he was like shuttling people. He actually had fun. And he got to drive his van, because it's like the camper van that he's built out with like all this mountain bike stuff, and they have chairs and things, and they have 2 kids. So plenty of room to transport people. And so he had a blast doing that. So I got my money back on the golf carts because they didn't work. And I told them that the next day. So they gave me my money back, which was nice. So I'd say, yeah, like transportation, someone with they have an actual like big bus, but it didn't make any sense to rent it because it was a couple $100 versus like $40 or something for a golf cart. But either way, it worked out.
And people didn't arrive at the same time.
Right.
That was like, because people weren't coming at the same time. Like people were coming an hour early.
Oh yeah, you go tell them all about that. I was just drinking and doing my makeup, and I could hear all this chaos. And Kelly and them were like, "What the heck? Everyone's coming in drones, and we didn't like think that was going to be a thing." So you go tell them.
That's super interesting because you were having it at like a house. People might have been like, well, you know what, we'll just show up early, see what everyone's doing, just go hang out, we had to rope family off a or area, whatever. Yeah. So let's actually talk about that, because it's different than showing up at like a church. I mean, the doors won't be open. But if they're showing up like,
I don't know if they thought there was like appetizer hour or something, but they, we had to rope off the section where the reception was going to be, because she wanted to walk from the reception area all the way over to the actual archway. And so we roped that off. We roped off the front door so people wouldn't come in the front door. When I say rope, we used tulle and made it look pretty, And then we kind of decorated the little door that we wanted people to go through. And people were there like an hour to 45 minutes early. I mean, family, yes, because they knew they needed to be there at a certain time for the photos, because you were doing all the first look and doing a lot of the family photos first. But like, I don't know. I just friends and stuff. And we're like, okay, just trying to make sure people, I think Kelly was on that, trying to just get people to stay kind of in the outdoor area. And logistically that was a little tough because we did rope off the front door for people so they couldn't come in and use that restroom. And I think we forgot there was another restroom right behind the little chef's quarters where she was staying. And they could have used that, but
So
it all
maybe,
worked out. People weren't hurt. People weren't frustrated about any of it. I
but
think
it was
people
kind
just
of
wanted to
a,
be outside, and
yeah, well, it was a beautiful day,
the
beautiful
location
area.
wasn't ugly. So they
Right,
could just
right.
hang out and have like this beautiful view and still be there.
But something like, most of the time you hear people are late for everything, and here they are showing up 45 minutes to an hour
The
early
only
for.
people that I heard were late and we had already started were the people that were shuttling.
Oh, okay.
They were just
Okay.
a little bit behind. Somebody,
Yeah.
as the music started, they're like, wait, the people for the shuttle aren't here yet.
Got it.
They ran in from the side and sat down as soon as we started walk. I was laughing. I was like, oh man.
That's
Yeah, it was
funny.
funny. It's those were little challenges, and the first look was really important to me because in a sense I did want to elope. If you I mean, if I could be
Yeah.
honest, like I know how hectic and crazy all of this can be, but he just was like, no, I really want to do this. And once our parents were on board, they were like, oh, you're not going. So I was like, okay. In a lot of ways, accommodating people and putting them through a stressful event. And it is stressful. That's why there's always alcohol, right? Because
Right.
there's distractions and games. And like, I made sure that we had multiple house parties before all this so people could get to know each other a little better. So it wasn't as
Ooh,
awkward.
that's a
Yeah.
really nice tip. Like, people weren't
Yeah, it
showing
really
up
helps.
and staying and like, oh gosh, I don't know a single other person here. You gave them an ability to create relationships prior to the wedding. What
Oh
a
yeah.
great tip. That's awesome.
I was like, oh yeah, remember Smithy? And all my work friends were there. And so they remembered them. My dad had seen a couple of these people before. Becca had met a couple people beforehand when she was here visiting. So that really helped. I didn't realize that I have a lot of introverted friends, even though I'm very extroverted and some of my friends are very extroverted. I didn't realize that I had so many like introverted friends that were a little shy. I was like, here, have this mega pint Johnny Depp glass of wine.
Yeah. So I think that's actually great. What an awesome idea that you helped kind of facilitate that. So then when they get to the wedding, they're not making first introductions. That's awesome.
Yeah. And it was cool. Like the chef I heard really fun. She went around and talked to everybody, which I love that she wasn't shy about that. Like she went out and sat with like Justin's whole family on the patio, and there were multiple places for other people to sit all over the property and still have like private conversations. But the first look was funny because I knew I was going to cry just because, I mean, Justin's my person and I've waited a long time, to meet someone I really like and enjoy. Because dating was rough. I was like, oh, I'm going to be the cat lady. This is so bad. Like, I can't settle. And when I finally met my person, I was like, yes. So I had this idea in my head, but I also like am a very, as much as I am outgoing and fun and don't mind saying things in front of other people, there was a lot that I wanted to say with just him and I. It was so funny because I got all ready. Everybody shuffled everyone around. I was like, I don't want anyone around. Like, we have to like have a little private moment. And as soon as I walked out and saw his back, I just lost it. I was like, and McKenzi's like, oh crap, I'm gonna cry too. And like it was just so funny. We were just
I didn't expect it. I didn't
expect
like
that.
You seem like you had it all solid. Like you're like, yeah, it's just another day. It's fine. But yeah, no.
I mean, it was until then, right? Like I can roll with it. I've done a lot of stuff like this before. I was like, I know what to expect. I'm just gonna roll with the punches. And you kept me mimosa'd up. It was perfect. That's what I mean. Like without Leslie, there's no way. Like it was a lot of, she made me feel pampered and loved, and like she knows me so well. So anything I needed, she was like right there. And I was like, well, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Blah, blah, blah. Like help me get ready and
right.
Things like that, which was really important to me to have, right? Like where I just feel settled and she doesn't make me anxious or anything like that.
They didn't have like groomsmen or a bridal
right.
party. They didn't have that. So it was really interesting. I think there might have been like a little bit on like, okay, what are our tasks? You know what I mean? Like how much are we supposed to help? I don't want to overstep.
You didn't have traditional roles, like because you weren't called
everything tradition,
maid of honor
was out the window.
Right.
Yeah.
But let's talk about that in 1 second. I want to talk about the first look. So the first look, you wanted to specifically, this was, I loved this from a photography perspective, that you didn't necessarily, well, you did say vows at the ceremony too, but you also mentioned that you wanted to say something special and personal to Justin outside of, witnesses, essentially, is kind of the way I'd say it. And I thought that was a really lovely touch, because it created just even an extra moment. So sometimes people are on the fence about doing a first look, and I think that they're great because you could tie in something like you did here, that maybe it's like personal words to each other, and then you still have the ceremony. I mean, it wasn't any less exciting or romantic seeing each other at the ceremony, what was it, like 30 minutes almost later? It was still very emotional, both ways. And I thought the way you did it was really, really lovely.
And I'm not superstitious or traditional. I very much like pave the way for whatever I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Justin and I had been together. It would have been so that whole week is really funny. It's the week that we met. It's the week that we got engaged, and now it's the week that we got married. So it's like this special week for us always. So I wasn't worried about like not. I mean, yes, I didn't let him see my dress or anything like that. I wanted him to have that wow factor, and I didn't tell him anything about too much of like what was in my office behind me. It's still like all over the place, but I definitely wanted to have like this meaningful moment. And I will say, like, looking back, it's like I got married like 3 times because we had the rehearsal party too, which was awesome. I was like, oh my God, we partied like for 4 days straight.
Right.
My liver, I was like, I need a cleanse. This was
I was
a lot,
exhausted
but
when I got home.
I think a lot of us just like passed out on Sunday and Monday. We're just done. But it was so important to me to have, because it was just him and I. And when you think about it too, like there's just a ton of people everywhere all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And to have that moment all by ourselves and just kind of have that, like, because first of all, we both started crying. So that was even better. And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna be able to talk. And it was just nice to have like a little mini version and then be like, okay, we can do this.
Because you could also be yourselves.
Yeah.
In your way, there weren't other people watching, or you didn't feel, I mean, I'll just say judged in any way, because it was just the two of you, and I was there, but it was really lovely. I thought it was a really nice touch. I would highly recommend people do like personal words to each other at their first look.
I feel like from a photographer's standpoint that you actually get better shots at that little private thing for
100%
the first look than when he's at the archway and she's walking down the aisle and getting that first look, because you're not getting them like this close. You're getting them, one person over here, one person over here. So it would just be...
and you don't have that connection. Like you stood back, you're
like, it's for you. I am for you. It's not for everybody else.
It was more emotion. I think first looks can be very emotion, especially if you incorporate kind of what you did. So sorry, little tangent about that too.
No, I think it's great. And you capture it really well on all your social. So it really helped me decide 100% like that I wanted to do that, because even looking back at the pictures you took, like his face, he's just so animated and happy, and like all the movements we were doing, because we were just like scanning each other and looking at everyone was like, oh, and then he's like, do we kiss now? And I was like, no, like it was just a lot of fun. And
I thought that was cute that you guys didn't kiss during that. I thought that was super.
I was like, not yet. And the whole kiss thing is really weird. Like we were like tongue, no tongue, like passionate.
It is weird, right? Things you don't.
It's super really creepy. Like everyone's watching you kiss, and I'm like, I don't know if I feel. So we practiced a bunch, and then it was just a shit show. Like we just kept laughing and making it bad, and I was just like, I can't do it. So and then even like, so it was really cool. Leslie did my engagement photos, and we were just X-rated.
Let's talk about engagement photos, because I think that they are It's always nice if the same person does it, but there's not always circumstances that allow that, like especially if you're coming to a destination wedding or anything like that. But I think what's important is that people do photos with each other and do it sounds like you might have done, like kind of experimented, like you said you got X-rated. I don't know what that means exactly, but
I didn't really get
I know
X-rated.
Our clothes stayed on.
We
were just being silly and
you kind of got some kinks worked out. Like, oh, in Leslie,
you just said X-rated and kinks in the same.
Yeah. I think that it was nice that you did that because you also knew kind of what you liked, and you didn't micromanage, but you did know, like, I like this side of myself better because you had those photos with each other. And I think that that sort of smooths things out on a wedding day. It was like, okay, actually, I kind of already know that I like this side.
And she doesn't like this. Like,
right. She kind of knew what you liked a little bit. And I think that was really helpful for you and maybe gave you guys more comfortability. I don't know.
I did it as a gift. It was just a gift for me to give to her. I didn't know that you wanted to do them, you know.
No.
And I was like, oh, no, I'm just saying, like, I don't do wedding or engagements or anything as a photographer. I do team sports and headshots, so it's not really in my wheelhouse. And so I had to keep referencing like my phone for poses, and like I totally Pinterest the whole like different poses. She brought a bunch, and then there was a couple other photographers there that were just helping out, and they were like, oh, this one. I was like, okay, you know, and they were fun. They're so animated. I think they were actually a little reeled back at the wedding.
Oh yeah.
Than they were at the engagement.
Oh, I'm sure. That's one thing about engagements, that because you also have a short one, you're wearing attire that maybe isn't as flexible, comfortable.
The jumping.
You know, like right. So on your engagement shoot, you can do so much more. Typically you have also like a full hour, you know, that where you're like, or, you know, sometimes even more depending on locations you go to. But your wedding, you have to like fit this like mini engagement session into a time limit of a wedding at the right time. You know, we struggled with that a little bit on your wedding day because of like the timing and stuff like that. Sunset wise, like I'm like, we got to get the photos at sunset. Like that's the epic shot. But so yeah, your primo photos often come from your engagement session. Obviously you're going to get amazing photos on your wedding day, but there's just some limitations to it.
Yeah.
So I think it's great
to get everything after the wedding done within like 30 minutes because all the guests are waiting to eat or whatever.
Right.
You're just waiting. You have to get everything quickly.
Right. Exactly.
So. And that goes back to like the fact that all my friends are like literally in the industry. So like Leslie's in the industry too. Like all these people, you know, can do all these things. And so it was fun. It was freezing the day that we did our engagement photos here in Vegas, also by a place that we mountain bike all the time. So it was really pretty. But I will say they weren't like, when I look back, I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely a tomboy, like wearing lashes. Like that's pretty, like I just did it. I think that, and there's a lot of, I just got off a phone call earlier today with a girl who's getting married in October and she's gained some weight. And I was like, you know, there's so much freaking pressure. And don't get me wrong. I didn't want to feel gross. I just didn't want to worry about like wearing like thick Spanx. Like, yes, I wore like these cool short, like almost like bicycle short kind of things, but that's because my dress was see-through. I have a lot of tattoos everywhere. I just wanted to feel comfortable and smooth. Get one with a P flap because I didn't, and so that was
you told me that.
Yeah, it was
I was like, come on. One of my friends came up. She's like, oh, what do you suggest? And I was like, get Spanx with P flaps. Like we had to like shimmy me out of it, and I'm like laced into this bad boy. I was like, I'm not undoing it, and you know, whatever. I was like in this thing. But yeah, like I kind of wanted to do that jump thing with like, you know, he's holding me, but people kept trying to like dance with me too. I couldn't raise my arms above here because it's corseted. So there was and then at the end of the night, it was like chafing. I was like, all right, are we down to like 10 people here? It's time to take me out. It was hilarious. but yeah, like I couldn't move my arm. So like Justin, I went to jump, but I could jump like this high. And he went to like catch me and we were laughing. I was like, I wonder what those pictures look like. They're a mess. But yeah,
That
just
was
all those
fun.
little things.
Yeah. I thought it was I had a good chuckle out of the jumping because Leslie also had a list. So I was like, which I think is super helpful. Don't get me wrong. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
think it's really great to have a list. Some key shots, primarily family shots, are great because the photographer doesn't know who people are typically. So like when you say bridesmaids or friends or whatever, sometimes the photographer is just like, I don't know who that is. So it was really great for me to have a point of contact, which was Leslie, who it was also great because she's a photographer. So it was like, it was helpful in that regard too. But yeah, having some lists and creating some ideas, but not like presenting like Leslie didn't say, here's my Pinterest board to replicate every single thing that you can on here. It was like, I'd kind of like a jumping shot, or I have this feeling I like this. It was a couple things, and we tried them, and we did, the stuff on the list, and
Yeah.
some of it was worked, and some of it didn't. But we still totally tried them, and I think that we had a great time. I don't know, that's how I felt, but it was
No,
helpful
and
for
you
me
did,
to know.
yeah. And you did so good too, like with the family stuff. Like I even told the moms and dads, I was like, we're going to take family pictures. Like if there's something specific you want, like giving them that heads up so that they are prepared. I think that's really something that a lot of the moms actually said, are you okay, Leslie? Do you have a hairball? What's happening? Yeah, I think that was a big one. Like managing family, especially in general, I think was something that I didn't perceive happening. And then all of a sudden it was happening. And I was like, oh, okay. So knowing that I could go to you, my friends and you and say, look, if anything is like whatever, like I don't have anything to do with it. And so that you guys can step up and say, yes, no, do this, do that.
Mhm.
And it's not me saying it.
Right.
100% spend the money on that, do that, because family can be very diva-y and extra. They're nervous too. I didn't realize that. My dad was a nervous wreck. And to me, my dad's always been like very confident and kind of just like, whatever, he's from Texas, he doesn't give a shit. And I was like, are you going to be all right? He can't drink anymore either, right? He's like 7-8 years in remission of cancer. Here, meanwhile, we're over here all self-medicating. So we're all good. Like even the chefs are drinking wine and cooking. I was like, do you like have at it? And so I didn't realize that he was going to be like really tense and he loves Justin. So I think there was a bunch of pictures and the dads actually cried. And I noticed the moms were like more collected in a sense, they kind of teared up, but the dads were just like, oh, it was really funny.
Yeah, the family can be the unexpected, no matter the dynamics, no matter the relationships you have with family and close friends or whatever. I have noticed that weird shit happens when you start planning a wedding. Like people have a lot of opinions for one thing. And it's kind of like knowing what to take in and absorb, knowing where to have your boundaries, and also being open to what people say, because sometimes they do have good ideas, but it every wedding I go to, there's something that people don't expect when it comes to like guest count and family, that something happens. And yeah, like even your dad being nervous, that was not something you expected.
I don't think he knew
Yeah.
what he was supposed to do or navigate, how he was supposed to like navigate any of that. I think he was just like, I'm here, this is my part, and I know that part, but I mean, she didn't have it super formal, so there really weren't any speeches. There weren't any,
Right.
you know what I mean? She did have the father-daughter dance. He knew he was a part of that, but I don't think
By the way, you guys had a great father-daughter dance.
So cute.
Oh, good. I love the pictures from that too. I mean, it was good. I was like, and midway through, I was laughing. I was like, God, Dad, this is sappy. Like, oh my gosh, that song couldn't be more like, sad or tear jerky. I was like, I could have picked something a little more upbeat. But I think in a sense, he was
You made him
really,
pick the song?
Oh yeah. Oh,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't pick that. I would have picked
see, I think
something.
most people pick the song. Most people
Oh
pick the
yeah.
song for their dads and stuff.
Some. I think it's probably 50
50
50,
50.
50 50, yeah. But you
Yeah.
think that your dad felt that was a really nice moment, I'm guessing is maybe what you were going to say. I don't know.
Yeah, he definitely, I mean, he loves Justin. And so I think that, just over our conversations in general, he was almost reminiscent of all the things we hadn't done yet as father daughter. And, I come from, I'm a divorced kid. And so there's a little bit of like, him and I have been buddies most of my life. We're a lot alike. We like a lot of the same stuff. And so in a sense, I'm like his adventure buddy. And now I have a new adventure buddy. And so it was like a mourning process for him too. Right? Like he's like,
Yeah.
oh, we never did this and never did that. I was like, we'll get to it. Like it'll be good. Like we're still good. But it's like him learning a new way for me too, because I've never had that. Even in previous relationships, I never really made them like important, right? Because they weren't really, like, let's be honest. Like otherwise, I would have already been married a long time ago, right? If I found my person. But Justin came in the picture and he just, you meet him and you're just like, oh my gosh, he's like a male version of me, even more so, right? Because he doesn't have like even more of a filter, even though I guess I've been told I don't have a filter either, but there's
No,
that.
I
But
think
yeah,
that it was really nice. And I think that, I've had conversations with people that are choosing not to do dances with their parents or whatever. And there's always reasons that, you have to
yeah,
make that call for yourself. But if it's available and there's no conflict, I definitely recommend parent dances because there's, it's also an opportunity for your parents. And, I'm a mom now, so I'm like, oh, gosh, I get super choked up at the mother son dances. So it gives them an opportunity. It's almost like your first look with your parents. Like it's their time with your parent,
I
Um
loved your reception when you danced with your dad with the band and everything and the ambiance. It's a moment. It's
right.
beautiful.
Yeah. So anyway, it's a little
I
sentimental,
think it's a
but
good way to highlight them as well and everything they've done for you if you have that good relationship with them.
right. It's if you're on the fence and it's like, take it or leave it, I would say take it.
Always do what feels good. That's what I would say. If
Right.
it didn't feel good, I took it off the list. Like that bridesmaids. I'm like, oh God, I can't do it. Like I just can't.
I
I
couldn't,
don't
yeah.
want to do. Yeah, I was like, no, I don't want to do it.
She has such a good connection with so many people. I think it would have been really tough for her to decide
I
who was
think
going to
that
be it.
I can attest to that too. Like you don't make this harder on you. You don't
yeah,
have to do anything when you're planning a wedding now, especially post pandemic. It's like people do what you got to do and have a good
When
time. Feels
I
good. I
was
like that.
one more thing about getting back to kind of like logistics and guests and all that kind of stuff. I know when Leslie was having people kind of not necessarily bow out from coming, but coming, the excuses were coming kind
Mhm.
of thing. I was just like, cut it loose, like cut it loose, just let it go. Like they can't, because she was, at some point starting to take it a little personally.
Mhm.
And I was like, you can't take it personally. People have their own things. I go, we're in a society now where we have to tell everything that's happening with each other. Like we feel like we owe people excuses, I guess, like,
Right.
oh, my dog is this, or, oh, this is going on, or, oh, this is
Right.
going on.
Totally.
I think it might be some of the social media where we're like going to Walmart today, buying 10
Right.
cans of whatever, I don't know, but I feel like we just have to like tell everybody that stuff. And so when
yeah,
she was,
information overload. I was
Yep.
like, I can't
yes,
hear about another bad thing happen. And they were all really bad things. Like there were even some people that made it like literally were like, I'm on my way. It was like Saturday morning. I was like, okay, and definitely like really tragic event happened and they just figured it out and that she was still there. I was like, oh my gosh, like, but I was housing all that information. So yeah, maybe designate someone. But then here's the thing that I think of. Then Leslie would take on that burden and I know what she has going on in her life. So like to me, I took on what I absolutely 100% knew I could, vented when I needed to, and then like hired out when I and
Right.
then let all the other shit go. Like one of the girlfriends of mine who I work out with at the gym, she was like, on your day, if people are fighting in the hallway or like whoever, and she even said, she's like, some of my family doesn't even get along. And I was like, oh my God, nobody ever talks about like when people have personality issues. I had no idea that Justin's mom, having 2 boys, would take this wedding and make it like the Princess Diana of things. And she just wanted to do it all up. And I was like, reel it back. Like, I do not have time or energy. Like the fatigue that I was telling you about, like at the end, I was like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. I really didn't.
Right.
I didn't want to care about any other decision. I made those little archway pieces, like a week before. I was like, oh, I got to put these together. Like,
Yeah,
threw on some music.
she made all the decorations, like all of them. She embellished her dress.
Yep.
She made all the little like wood blocks with the bike chain in a heart shape. She made who made the big pine things, the big pine rounds?
Oh, so cool. So Justin's dad found this guy in Reno, and he cut like slabs of wood for them. They went and picked them all out. So it has like the really cool termite etchings on them. We did a whole thing with which was really important to me, right? Like it's both families kind of coming together, making something together. So we picked out the wood, we etched it all out like Marshall established, and then the date, and we brought it with us, and Justin like finished it. So to me, like making something, like technically my therapist made my bouquet, and she showed me how to make the boutonnieres and the corsages and stuff. And that was really important to me. And putting all the little centerpiece flower pieces together, and just knowing that, like, because flowers are expensive. I know probably every vendor is going to listen to this and be like, oh, she's like, but like, it's true.
She's
like
the DIY queen.
What you gotta make, you gotta pick the things. I think that there's a lot of concessions that happen when you start planning a wedding. You have this big dream, and then you're like, oh, this is my budget. And you
It'd
have
be
to
like
start,
50 grand.
Yeah, you have to like start taking back, like, okay, we can swing this, or maybe that's not as important as it originally was, or, kind of really reeling it in. And I think that that's kind of a misconception. I think it's kind of like a buzzkill when people start planning their wedding and they're like, this is my wedding plan. And then you're like, oh, this is my budget. This is real. It's just real life.
And everything has gone up. So like, of course, when I started planning everything just started skyrocketing. But at the same time, one, I picked a location that's just gorgeous to begin with. So there's no need to like overdo it. And then 2, I even wanted to make my own dress, but I hadn't sewn in so long, and I know I could have done it, but it just, once I found the dress I liked, I just had it altered. It wasn't that big of a deal, to me.
And you embellished it with your own touches.
Yeah.
Leslie-fied it.
Yeah.
I did. I was hot that we were putting it on me and putting it all together. And like, I was hot gluing just the little last pieces on it. It was great. I loved it. And everyone's like holding me into this dress. But yeah, I didn't like the zipper. So I ripped it out and got a corset. Corsets are the way to go because you can kind of ebb and flow with whatever's happening. And it's cozy.
You said it's cozy, but you
couldn't jump.
Yeah.
I couldn't jump, and everyone wanted to like spin my arms, and I was like, this is it, people, like right here. So I was so envious of everybody like jamming out, and I was like doing the like, white man dance, like just barely being able to move.
So it sounds like you took your vision, you ran with it, you ran into some obstacles, but it sounds like you had a good crew of people that really kind of helped you overcome some of those things, personal and even some professionals. And then you really made it your own, I think. Like your dress was like super you. I've never seen anything like that. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is the cutest thing. And it was so you. And I just thought that was a nice touch, just like the personal words for the first look. It was so cute. So
I loved what everyone brought to the table too. Like even Eric, like his creativeness and knowing me really well, and how he put the whole ceremony together. Everyone was like, I've never witnessed anything like that. And when he was telling the story, super funny, because in the story, McKenzi's in the story, and I almost wanted to stop and correct him. I'm like, it's McKenzi, but like he said a friend, but that was fine. It wasn't it wasn't that important at the moment, but it was funny that you and I knew that, because that's how I met Eric, who happens, he's one of my good friends. And like all my other friends, like how I made the mugs, he made the coffee, he roasted the coffee. Leslie took the picture that's on there. My friend did, she did the little like girl and guy on the bicycle, put it on the mug, like that was her decals that she helped me put together. And then my friend Lee Fan like made the box, and just everybody knew me so well, so all they had to do was ask a couple questions, and then just know that like whatever. Same with the chef. I was like, savory, yummy, tapas, pizzas, bacon, all of it. Do it. Go for it. Yeah. So it was just like nice. And then you had you were so funny because you were like wrangling cats. Justin and I were like ready to party. And you're like, we need to get these pictures. And we're like doing shots, and we're just kind of like, whoa, hold on, one more song. And you were like, oh my God. And he's like talking dirty to me. And then the onesies come in, and you were just laughing and having fun.
Yeah, no,
I think sorry we ruined that.
No, you're good. You're good. That moment. I think that's not to, I think that I have a relationship with you, and I also knew your intentions. Like I wasn't going to let you not get some sunset photos. And that was a big advantage of being on property. Like it was an intimate wedding. There wasn't a massive timeline to do checklists. I was like, hey, the sun's looking really good right now. Let's actually run over there, snap a few, got distracted. I was like, actually, it's looking really, really good now. So let's run over there. And that was a luxury because we had it was intimate, and we have a relationship, and I also kind of knew what you wanted. And so I don't know, I thought that was a nice luxury that you don't always get with larger weddings. Like once a couple portraits are done, they're on to the next thing. And I thought that was, that's one thing I love about small weddings.
I would say like for sure too, like April is, and I knew that even though the weather can be tricky, is that April, the time change hasn't happened yet. So it's darker sooner, versus May, but in April, Zion's freezing. So
you had to pick it.
So having a night wedding or having that sunset time, like there was a lot of light still, and I wanted to get pictures early. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think it worked out really well, like no matter what, like, I mean, even just like that week after and listening to everyone's experiences and how much fun they had and all the different things that I got to experience, I would have to say like there wasn't anything that went wrong. Even though it went wrong, like I accidentally froze like 2 bottles of champagne and they exploded. I was like, at home the drawer is not a freezer, but like everyone just kind of rolled with it and always was there to like even rolling in and rolling out. Les? Like we were like machines, like product of the 90s with like Tetrising everything and just like maneuvering everything and putting it all together, but still having fun. It was good.
Yeah, I think it was awesome. It was really impressive watching all the food be packed up to take home. I got lucky to take some home. Some of the pulled pork and stuff like that. It was really good. And it was just really like everybody had their jobs and everybody found their niche. Like it was the same people that were staying at the house, and everybody just kind of like started packing ice chests and started packing up food and finding the foil and finding the saran wrap, and just it was tearing down the little photo booth area, going and hunting down a lot of the petals that blew away, everybody was doing their own thing.
That's awesome.
That was the other thing, the photo booth. That was one of the best things I got to look at the next day on my honeymoon. And I just opened it up and got to see the little Polaroids and the thing. That was Leslie's idea. And it was so touching and so great to have like a visual and not just a guest book. Like it was creative. Everybody had fun with it.
Yeah. And they got to do it on their own time, and they could be it wasn't rushed. and they could come back to it. So it was served as like multi-purpose. It served as your guest book, and then it also served as like an activity. So if somebody was like, I'm not into this song, let's go kind of wander around. Oh, here's that thing. Let's take another one. I think that those are always nice touches when you have some sort of photo booth or activity outside of just having a reception. Dance.
I was worried with kids being there that because I used to own a photo booth company, and we would, have the big DSLR and all that kind of stuff and backgrounds and all that. I'm selling it at my next wedding that I'm doing to the person at that facility. And because I just don't want to get my weekends up anymore. Just kudos to you guys that want to be there on Saturdays and Friday nights and all that. I just don't want to give up my weekends anymore. So when we run a photo booth, a lot of times it becomes the activity for like a babysitting station, and it shouldn't be, and so with the Polaroids, I think, and there was very few kids there, like 3.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And they were well-mannered. They did a great job. None of the kids like ran off with the camera and took weird pictures, anything, and bring them back, Right. It was fine.
That's awesome. So in wrapping up, do you have any like major takeaways or things we could actually summarize, even maybe like anything we forgot?
I think the one thing that I remember is, a lot of times people do like island remote sessions or get married in a river, things like that. But always there's a hotel or something nearby. And we had to transport everything, like alcohol, the cake, the cupcakes. Like, so the day of, Leslie had to get dry ice, and like I bought this container, and it was a little tricky. Like, I won't lie, like it kind of stressed me out a little bit where, they're like, oh, we'll handle with care. I was like, handle with care. We're about to go on a 3.5-hour drive, and there's a dirt road at the end. I was like, well, whatever. So the chef was great. She was like, don't worry, I brought anything and everything to fix the cake. Like, she was prepared. She was ready to go.
That's so awesome.
But yeah,
it's like another going on another tangent, but I'm assuming because emotions are high and you've spent money and you want to make this amazing, and by the time you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to get the cake there, and you might 6 months prior, 9 months prior, a year prior, you're like, I don't really care about the cake, it's just cake, we're gonna eat it. And then you're there, you're like, gosh, now I have to do this, and it's just like extra stress that because it's compounding on top of each other, like God. So
they definitely needed 2 cars, I would say. You're
they
doing
were
that, you definitely need 2 cars and ice chests and stuff like that hold ice for at least 4 hours real well.
Yeah.
And the fact that the champagne box, all the alcohol and cakes went into Leslie's car, and then all the rest of it went into my car. But she was like, yeah, when we opened up the thing, the box actually fell out. Didn't break then, but I froze them and they exploded. And I was like, of course they exploded. Like
$70 bottles of champagne fell out of my car in a box. And that was the one thing she said, like, don't break. And it all fell out of the car when we picked up the cake. And I was like, shit.
I know.
Like, oh no. And I picked them up and I'm looking at them and I'm like, okay, no, they're good. Weird. Okay.
That is so funny.
And no, everything was great. I love that, and I didn't think about this either, because I gave the guests coffee beans, and there's so many people that don't grind their coffee beans. And so I should have we found a grinder, but it was just funny. I was like, oh, I didn't think about that either. There's just certain ways that I live, and I just think everyone lives that way, apparently.
Right.
But yeah, like, obviously there's all these different things I look back on, but that's kind of like the fun part of events and things like that. And I was basically to the point, and think about this, we got engaged during COVID when like I hadn't seen certain people in 3 years.
Right. That had to have been challenging to plan and invite, honestly.
People were so anxious. They were like, I don't know, like,
was probably a lot of people's first event after. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I said, basically, I had this mindset that it was like either 6 people or 60 people. Like, we're
Right.
getting married and having that mindset and not being so upset if something goes wrong. Cause like, even the funny part is we got news that there was going to be like a blackout and
Yeah.
I think that set me over the edge. I was like, well, now I'm mad, but we were like problem solving midway. We were like, well, we'll just like hook up an extension cord to one of the cars and like do my hair in the parking lot. But then I was like, no way. Like, I'm mad. Like
But we only got
want the
half the story
experience.
on that, the blackout thing.
I
Like
know. And then
we didn't get
Kelly,
all the information.
yeah. Thank goodness Kelly had a headache because then, or, you know, she's having sinus issues. She goes to the store, sees the sign, and it says 1 a.m. or, you know, midnight to 4 a.m. instead
Oh.
of 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., which I should have just called Glenn and asked him, but because Justin wasn't listening clearly because he was like, oh, it's like a random blackout. I was like, random? It's not random. Like,
And
we
he's
need
like, what up?
power.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm getting my hair done during that time. Yeah.
I'm like, blow dryers, we need wattage. But it was funny because like we partied, everything went great. Everyone went home. We stayed up for another 2 hours. We literally all go into our rooms and then the power just goes boom. We're all in.
I
Like,
was brushing my teeth.
I was washing my face and I was like, help. Like,
Yeah, it was awesome.
it was funny.
And then at
But
4
yeah,
in the
then
morning, all the lights came on because we forgot to
oh,
shut
the
it all off.
TV, everything
Oh
came
my
on.
gosh,
Like,
that's so funny.
so yeah, none
It
of
was
us really slept a
memorable.
lot.
Regardless of all the debacle with the champagne, somebody was there to pick it up, you know.
Yeah.
Just the whole blackout, you know, it was fine to happen during, you know, off time, but it was all very memorable. And I think it was such a really, really, really good event. You should do it again. I'm just kidding. You told me never to let you do it again.
Yeah, that's another thing. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know properly how to thank everybody enough. Like, it's something that I still am like indebted to forever because of all of the sacrifice that they did. They hustled so much for me. And I was like, oh, you know, never like let me plan because I'll forget. It's like pregnancy. That's why people have
Yeah,
multiple kids because they forget how awful it is.
totally.
And they're like, no, it'll be fine. And then you do it again and you're like, oh my gosh, like, why didn't we just go to a buffet and like call it good? Like, no, here I am, like planning some crazy event because that's what I do. I like it. I like the excitement and experience. And, but yeah, no, I had to write myself a note. Just chill out. Everything will be fine. Like, so.
And it was great.
Yeah.
So many memorable moments. And yeah, I think it was a really lovely time. And I think that you did a really great job. I'm also going to say that Leslie is very organized. So, I mean, I will say that planning something like this might not be for everyone. I think that Leslie's organized. She was quick to make decisions. Like it sounds like anyway, you didn't hem haw over like certain things. Like you might have on some, but like, okay, I'm going to get the house next, move on. And so I think that in that respect, you were suited for planning something like this. Whereas if you have a hard time making decisions or, you know, anything like that, it might not be, you know, the greatest decision to plan something on your own. It might create more stress than necessary. Would you agree? Or I mean,
oh yeah,
your background's in project management, right? So like you have some skill in that, like organization.
Yeah, she's very task oriented. I know she is very task oriented, so she's just like,
right.
And she doesn't like it if people aren't that way. Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean you don't know or you can't do something? Like, of course you can. Or yeah, no, it was to me like even people planning like, oh, I'll just come up the day of, and then I would tell them all the reasons why they shouldn't, right? Like the rock slides and random things happening, and you need to be in the park, period, because it's a Saturday, and you know, this is one of the number one, like the top 5 national parks of our, you know, nation. And, you know, just little stuff like that, bringing it to light and being the educator, but definitely having that fatigue. And yeah, knowing that all those little things, like I had no idea that I had to put that there will be dinner at a wedding. I'm like, all right, you know, I guess that's
I kept trying to get her to give me her URL like login so I can just add pictures and add information and sit there and update people. But she's like, no, people aren't reading it anyways.
Yeah, they're not. They're just asking me like, what shoes do I wear? What's the temperature going to be like? And I was like, did everyone like forget how Google works?
You're like,
oh,
do this.
That's funny. Yeah.
I did. I looked up like over 10-year almanac, average weather. And that's why April's very tricky. It's a good one, but it could storm really bad,
Right.
No,
or it could
yeah.
be perfect.
Mhm.
So that's why May was a thing. But yeah, everything to me, and I think that's where you hit on it. Like you need to know who you are as a person before you go and like be like, I'm gonna do everything. Like there's one of the girlfriends that I know, and she's having it on top of World Market, and they have 200 tables, and she has hired everyone for everything, and she has it completely schematiced out.
Right.
And their whole day is like massage and facial and this and that. And I was like, instantly, oh, what? No, absolutely
Right.
not. Like 400 things past what I would ever want to do ever. Like I even got
Right.
slippers because I was like, I'm wearing my heels, they're adorable, I'm 40 something years old, my feet hurt, give me my foo-foos. Like I want
Right.
I want cozies.
Right.
But yeah, just like knowing yourself, what you want. Everything was everyone I knew very well there, and it was good.
That's awesome. Well, thank
Yeah.
you guys. I am so excited to share this. It might be 2 segments.
I talk a lot.
But maybe we can even do like a something on social or anything like that, like Ask Leslie's, like an Ask Leslie's
Yeah.
session. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to do like a little wedding recap and talk about, a unique wedding planning situation. And I'm sure that people are going to be excited to hear about how you did it, and they might even have some questions. So stay tuned. Maybe we'll do another episode on it. But yeah, thank you so much for your time today. Super appreciate it. Anything else you'd like to share?
I'm good.
You're
You
good?
good?
Good.
Everybody should have a Leslie.
Everybody
And
should have a Leslie.
yeah.
I have 2 in my life now, so if you need one, no, just joking.
There you go. 2 is better.
2 is better than 1.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you.
You too.